Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being with us this Friday. I'm Leslie Adamy. Joe is off tonight. At the top, by now, you know the names Pfizer and Moderna, the vaccines in the fight against the coronavirus pandemic. But there is a third vaccine on the horizon awaiting approval from the FDA from the developers Johnson & Johnson. And as our Julissa Garza explains in tonight's top story, once approved, doses could soon be headed here.
There is another vaccine that is in the process of getting emergency use authorization, and this particular vaccine is a one dose and you're done.
Dr. Jacqueline Phillips, Chief Medical Officer at the Amistad Community Health Center, is talking about the Johnson & Johnson one-dose vaccine. This vaccine is in the process of getting emergency use authorization by the FDA. Dr. Phillips says because the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is only one dose, the distribution process should move faster.
So we have 1,300 doses, correct? We have to coordinate 1,300 appointments the first time and 1,300 appointments for the second dose. So it's hard.
She says it will be especially ideal for our smaller counties in the Coastal Bend.
That would be an ideal vaccine to bring out to some of these outlying areas where the coordination of getting those two doses, because you need two doses right now with the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccine to gain immunity.
The clinic did receive 1,300 doses of the Moderna vaccine and have been distributing them to their healthcare workers as part of the first tier of vaccine distribution.
We are still heavily focusing on our Tier 1A. However, we have been able to vaccinate some Tier 1B, primarily patients that are already established at Amistad.
And with a potential third vaccine, Dr. Phillips continues to share this message to try and prevent the spread.
So the most important thing to do right now is to continue social distancing, mask wearing, hand washing, following all of the CDC guidelines to avoid spreading infection or getting infected.
Julissa Garza, 3 News.
Julissa, thank you. And a reminder tonight, vaccines are not available for the general public just yet. Dr. Phillips says once the state health department gives the order to vaccinate everyone, Amistad will open for vaccinations to the general public.